True.
Yeah, so you've been around your dad's music for a while now, huh? How long have you been listening to your dad's stuff?
All my life, basically. I've been listening to my dad's music all my life, and I've helped with the transferring of the music to a digital medium. So that's how long I've been helping out with the music.
Absolutely. And have you noticed any progression, or how do you feel about how things have changed over the years?
I feel that my dad's music has progressed in a natural progression. I can't explain it, but it has progressed in a natural progression.
So, Rebbe, who do you feel have been some of the more important musicians that have been associated with your dad's music?
I think Guacamole Bob Moses has been a major part of my dad's music. I also think Juan Sabo, John Mendesky, and Paul Schaefer have also been major contributors in my dad's music. Especially Don Pate and John Walker on bass. Also big contributors in my dad's musical legacy. Another one has been Bernie Saninsky from Canada, a Canadian piano player, has also been a huge contributor in my dad's musical career.
Who do you think some of the most important players that your dad has played with are?
Well, I think Paul Schaefer was one. He's been playing with my dad since 1971. Robbie Coltrane, Phil Saunders. Actually, my dad has started in Phil Saunders' band. Then he went solo to do his own thing, and then Phil had backed my dad's band up. He's also done a gig with the great McCoy Tyner on piano, which is true. And Robert Coltrane, he's done some albums and gigs with Robert Coltrane and Danilo Perez. He's also played a gig with Danilo Perez in Boston. He's also an amazing piano player.
And there were a few other musicians you wanted to mention?
Well, Merlin Crispell was one who was introduced to my dad by Henry Kaiser, who Bruce Galante's club, who also leads downtown music in New York City, and he helps distribute my father's music, and that was a unique experience because Merlin Crispell has been the only female piano player, to my recollection, that has played by my father. To my recollection, don't quote me on that, but that's only to my recollection.
Anyone else mentionable or notable? Any mentionable gigs or recording sessions that you want to talk about?
Well, we've done quite a bit at Rashida Ali's studio. Ali and Rashida Ali, who is a drummer for John Coltrane, also put on my dad because he was also a very, very powerful and spiritual musician to us and he said my father put with the same spirit as John Coltrane. So I find that very interesting.
And our friend Rockalam, Bob Moses, he's known to have been around the Coltrane circle when he was younger, going out and checking out a lot of the shows, and he was really drawn to it. And he's related his experience playing with your dad to Coltrane's music. Do you think that's a good relation or a good an accurate assessment?
I think that's very accurate because my dad plays with the same intensity that John Coltrane has. He doesn't steal from him. He plays his own music, but he has the same vibe as John Coltrane, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that is true too.
So you were able to tune in to a recent session that your dad had that was down in Richmond, Virginia, where he's living now, and he was playing with some of the younger cats down there. How'd you find that? I know you were listening in and tuning into that, so what'd you think?
This was a very unique session because I was able to witness it via the internet, which I have never ever done before. So it was kind of cool so that I could participate from up here to down there, and he played Daniel Clark on piano, Cameron bass, and Zoe on saxophone. And Zoe sounded a lot like Dave Lehman, who was another cat my dad played with. And ironically, Dave Lehman taught Zoe how to play jazz because Zoe was from Russia, and he heard about my dad on YouTube, and he said, I have to play this cat. So they all play very good. I mean, for young musicians starting out in this field of avant-garde jazz, I'd say they play very good. Sure. The reason why we call it Journey Through the Pain, the Plains of Consciousness, was because my dad had a connection with Don Gross, who was a spiritual teacher of himself with the X philosophy, who wanted my dad to help teach them, but he came back east to New York to do his anatomy music and the Luminance Society, but he was heavily influenced by the teachings of teachers like Don Gross and
his teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
Musicians, but special.
Hugh.
Not
just musical masters, but spiritual masters have called upon my father to help them in their work and help spread the word of their teachings.
So Rebbe, do you feel like there's a connection between avant-garde and what they call spiritual jazz, and these masters that we're talking about and higher consciousness?
Absolutely. I mean, John Coltrane has been trying to get to that point at the end of his life. You know what I'm saying? Like before John passed over into the spiritual world, he was trying to get into the avant-garde too. My dad has been doing that most of my life, so most definitely. Here's the thing, my dad has played with all these greats, no doubt, but he has also been writing books combining the musical philosophy and the spiritual philosophy and recreating it into his own philosophy for the world to understand. And that's why he hasn't been wanting to be known for the world, because he didn't want to be bogged down by the music industry, or as he called industry of the music, if you know what I'm saying. Hugh.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what your dad calls the Huda Dharma and wisdom teachings?
The Huda Dharma and the wisdom teaching are a way for my father to bring the Buddha's teachings to the musicians and to incorporate music into that philosophy, as well as the Buddha teachings and the Bodhisattvas and all that. So, yes, indeed. So that's where all that comes from.
It's an enlightenment understanding. Right.
So, one of the most important aspects of your dad's music is bringing this idea of, or this Huda Dharma, these wisdom teachings, to other people, but not just in text, in the music as well. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's basically bringing enlightenment to them as well. Ensemble, that's what he called it, the fight of no music, if you can comprehend that.
So you were saying you feel like your dad was one of the first guitar players that were in on this type of scene, playing avant-garde or spiritual jazz or whatever you want to label it as?
Exactly. My dad was the first true avant-garde jazz guitar player to be written on this spiritual scene on jazz, starting 40 years ago with the Phil Saunders band, and then doing his own thing in New York, moving to Schenectady, then to Newburgh, then to Virginia to carry on their whole tradition. My father said that. Rebazar Mun said, my father's avant-garde is pure American avant-garde jazz at its purest. And that's coming from the head of the Grammys, Rebazar Mun. Even Paul Williams calls Dad my father sensei, because Paul Williams recognizes the spiritual aspect of my dad's music. Even Chris Caswell, when he played with my dad, knew my dad was out there, man. He knew that. And he's an LA cat. And even he knew my dad was out there. Well, I've always here.